Alright, so I got the fender off on that side. That was kind of a pain. I'm going to go ahead and get started on the parts car here. I'm going to get everything that I can removed out of it, and then after everything's ready, I'll push the car back and get the cherry picker in here and yank this engine out and transmission, and we'll get started doing that. And I was going to do a time-lapse video like I usually do, but this is going to take a little bit longer than normal because it's cold out. I have the heater going, and I have to constantly run back and forth because kids are being a pain today. It's Christmas, so they feel like they can act up for some reason. So I'm going to go ahead and get started doing this. I'm going to tear into it, and I'll skip forward to me actually pulling the motor out for you so that you don't have to watch the boring stuff. I know some of you like the boring stuff and some of you don't. But basically I'm just going to unbolt everything, pull it out, and go from there. So let's get started. Okay, so I removed the wiring harness because you cannot use an OBD2B wiring harness and ECU on a OBD2A car, even if you swap it in. Some things just doesn't line up right and it won't start. We actually had this problem with my brother AJ's old Civic on his 97 Civic he had. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Y7 harness on this Y8. Unfortunately, I won't have the VTEC unless I wire it up, which I probably will. So I'm going to go ahead and take the transmission apart from the engine. Install this new stage 2 clutch. It's just temporary. I prefer 6-puck, but I already had this one. So I'm just going to throw it in just because it's already out. I might as well knock it out. So we get started doing that. So this clutch actually looks fairly new, believe it or not, but I'm not going to take chances because looks can be deceiving. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is undo all the 10mm bolts. So this clutch disc actually does have quite a bit of life left in it. Like I said, I'm just going to go ahead and keep this as a backup, because it is a really good clutch still. It looks like it was recently replaced. Eventually I'm just going to go ahead and put a racing flywheel and a racing stage 3 6-puck in here. So I'm not going to worry about resurfacing or cleaning this surface because it looks pretty decent. I'm just going to go ahead and put the new clutch on, and we'll go from there. Okay everyone, so make a note right here that the clutch alignment tool, you want it to slide in and out really easy. If you don't do that, if you don't do it before you tighten everything, it'll make it to where the transmission doesn't stab easy. And I know if you're anything like me, you've had issues with transmissions going smoothly together. If this goes smooth, the transmission will go smooth. That's just a general rule of thumb, and it's always worked. We found this out about 5 years ago on a Civic we did, that we realized the clutch alignment tool wasn't going in easy. We tried stabbing it for 4 hours. We couldn't get the transmission stabbed. Ended up taking it back apart, loosening the clutch, making it slide easy and tighten it down. Slid right in. The transmission had no issues. So I figured I'd just give you that tip right there. So I'm going to go ahead and take this engine, and I'm going to move it out of the way because I have to get the 4-door in here so I can pull that crappy engine out. So I'm not going to stab the transmission back onto the engine just yet, just because it's easier to move this thing by myself with just the engine or just the transmission. So I'll be able to scoot this out of the way and get the 4-door in here. Right, so here's a few things you're going to need to start off with when doing the 96 to 2000 Honda Civic auto to manual swap. You will need shift linkages from a 92 to 2000 will work for the shift linkages. You'll need the brake gas pedal out of a 96 to 2000. I believe the EGs work as well. So from 92 to 2000. The clutch pedal from a 96 to 2000. These aren't that hard to remove, but they are. It's kind of one of those things. If you can get them already out of a parts car, please do so. But if you can't, it's fine. You can get one out of a parts car, and it's just these 4 bolts that hold on the brake booster, and then there will be a bolt up here, a bolt up here, and then 2 bolts. But you have to remove a whole lot to get to this stuff. Drop the steering column and all kinds of stuff, which it's not fun. If you can, get it with these if you want to keep it to where you have a clutch safety switch, so the clutch has to be pushed down in order for the car to start. Now that we've got that out of the way, you will need a clutch master cylinder with reservoir, the entire line all the way down to the clutch slave cylinder. You can get that at most salvage yards, but if you can't find it at a salvage yard, eBay does have these things you can purchase from time to time. You'll need a clutch. This is a really good clutch that I just pulled off the engine. You will need a flywheel, clutch, and pressure plate. So just get a clutch kit off eBay if you like eBay. I do personally, but everyone has their opinions. But it's the cheapest route and it works. Then you don't have to get special CV shafts. These ones are the manual CV shafts, but the automatic CV shafts fit in the manual transmission. So you don't need any special CV shafts. I do recommend replacing them if they look worn out, just to get it out of the way. You'll need the 5-speed transmission and a rear T-bracket, which is right here. I'll put this over here for you. Rear T-bracket off of a manual transmission. We did this swap on my brother's 97 Civic, I believe. And I can't remember if we used the manual or the automatic T-bracket. So if you have the automatic T-bracket, keep it just in case, because one of them, I can't remember exactly, we needed one of those. So then you have this bracket here. It sits on the transmission. For the 96 to 2000, this bracket's all you need. You don't need a special mount to convert it to a 5-speed, which is awesome. So after you get all these parts assembled and get them all acquired, you take the transmission out of the car, which is what we're going to do. We're going to be removing the whole swap, but this is just because I'm replacing the engine. Once you get the new engine and transmission in the car, then all the hard stuff comes in. We got to put those pedals in, the T-bracket, that bracket, and we'll get started doing that as soon as I get the old engine out. So give me a few seconds and we'll skip to the future. Okay everybody, so now we've got the 4-door in here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this engine, disassemble as much as I can with it in here because it stays warm. I don't have to have the garage door open. So I'm going to get it all disassembled the best I can. And the head's going to my brother AJ. We're going to make a non-V mini-me for him. If you don't know what that is, then stay tuned. I'll do a video for you. But yeah, this is the 4-door. You can tell by the idiotic hole right here on both sides. This will be getting patched up, welded over, and then made look pretty again. The bay will be getting painted. I've officially found a color I'm doing for the car, unless I change my mind, but it's probably just going to go gloss white. Actually, it's because of some of you who commented saying white. I will be doing the wheels bronze or gold color. So yeah, I'm going to get started doing this, and we'll speed it up just like the last video. Cut out all the boring stuff, and we'll get to the auto to manual afterwards. So. Well, Got the old blown Y7 out. The reason I took the head off to do it this time was I was going to check and inspect the head, see if it was good. And of course it was trashed. Valves got smashed by two pistons, completely broke off the rods. So yay. That motor's just junk. I'm going to salvage the alternator and brackets and whatever other things I can, and then it's just going to go to the scrap yard. But yeah, it's out. So the next video, we're going to get started doing the auto to manual swap, and I'll go through in detail what needs done to complete the auto to manual swap. So today I'm going to actually show you how to loop a power steering, and a lot of people ask why loop power steering. There's a lot of benefits to it. These cars are so light that they don't technically need power steering, not unless you're really weak. If you're really weak, it's understandable that you would want power steering. The benefits are less weight, less drag off the engine's horsepower, freeing up some usable horsepower. It looks cleaner in the engine bay without the power steering. Every time you take the engine out, if you ever have to, it's a lot easier because you don't have to mess with power steering. It'll still feel kind of like it has power steering, and you'll get used to it so quick if you do it this route. A lot of people want to know how to do it, so I decided I'm going to show them a video. And it can get messy. You will need a grinder or an air grinder. Just a normal grinder would work. There's a few variations of how to do this. This is the way I go with because it's quick and easy. And I love quick and easy. That is the best way to go. So let's get started. Okay, step one, you're going to want to remove the 10mm bolts holding all of it in. This just makes it easier once you get the lines cut. A lot of people actually prefer keeping this on there, but I don't. Doesn't make a difference. Every ounce counts when it comes to weight. Not that that'll actually make, you know, a huge difference or anything. Okay. So this line runs into the top of your power steering. This line runs to the reservoir that holds the fluid. Now when you undo this, it's gonna make a mess. So be prepared for a mess. I'm using the air tool, so I'll be cutting it with air. So I'll go ahead and start getting cutting it. Go ahead and make sure to wear safety goggles because you don't want one of these exploding. Okay, now that you got yourself a good little mess there, you're going to want to take the factory line that runs to the reservoir. This is actually the factory line. You're going to want to shove it over this metal spot right there on the hose and then clamp it. You might have to use an aftermarket clamp to get a really tight seal, but most of the time it works fairly well. Yes, and it is making quite the mess. Okay, next what you're going to want to do is I have just an old rubber line off for a coolant line or something on the Honda. We're going to go ahead and shove this on the second piece right there. And then use the clamp to make sure it seals properly. Next, you'll run these together. This can be a tricky part. Shove it on as far as you can get it, then move the clamp back up. And now you essentially have looped your power steering. You go in and turn the steering wheel to make sure that it still turns freely, and if it doesn't, you'll have to bleed out some of the fluid in here. So I'll go ahead and turn it and we'll see if it leaks. Well, it turned really freely inside. So this is one of the many ways that you can loop your power steering if you want to. Bigger vehicles, I don't recommend looping power steering. I recommend you just keep your power steering. Because on bigger vehicles, it is harder to turn them. But I just look at it this way. It's a free workout every time I drive my car. So after a while, you get so used to it that you don't even realize that there's not power steering in there. So I hope this video has helped someone. This is for how to do it on a 96 to 2000 Honda Civic. The 92 to 95 has more accessibility up here, and you will actually plug, and they make a kit for these that it already has a loop and everything. It's already fittings and all that good stuff. This is a cheap, inexpensive, very quick way to loop your power steering. Okay, so I ended up having a friend that needed stock mounts or wanted stock mounts, so he traded me stock mounts for these solids. They're not very old. That one's never been used. That one and that one were actually on the car, but he didn't like how bad it vibrated. So now I got them, solid mounts. I cleaned them up and painted them because they were just dirty. But they're still like in awesome condition. As you can see, I cleaned up that and painted it because there was a little rust, so I wanted the rust to go away. It was just like right there. As you can see how tiny this is. So we're going to go ahead and do the auto to manual swap. One of the first things I'm going to go ahead and do is put the clutch master cylinder and slave cylinder, or clutch master cylinder right there. Run the line across. That way it's out of the way. And I'm going to bolt it right here because that's where they factory go. Also got some goodies. Here's the drag sidewinder header. I got 2 of the test pipes, and I got this, the Jasma Racing Cam. And here's the specs on it. Now, if you want to read the specs, go ahead and pause the video when I get the image clear. And that's the specs. So, it's, from what I'm reading, it should just be a straight drop-in. Lube the cam up. You have to break the cam in. Run it from 1500 RPM to 2000 for 20 minutes. So I'll probably just tighten my throttle cable up to about 1800 RPM and let it sit there and idle for that long. It'll probably be pretty loud, but you have to break it in. If not, it can cause a lot of damage. It will probably idle like crap once it actually does go the idle back down, just because of the fact that it doesn't have a tune for it. But I will be getting a tune and all that stuff later on down the road. I just want the cam in. As you see, you got the clutch, transmission. It's all ready to go, ready to drop in. I just had to go get tags, so I haven't had time to do it today. And got the silver car gone. The guy came and picked it up. I appreciate it. Appreciate you coming to get that. I know you're watching this video. So yeah, we're gonna get started. I can't wait to put this on. Like, I'm so excited for that, and see how good it fits. And I have the Yanaka exhaust is still on its way. So we're gonna go ahead and get started on this auto to manual. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the clutch slave and lines over, and clutch master cylinder. We have to pull out the brake pedal. I don't know how good a video I can get with the brake pedal due to the fact that it's going to be kind of all crammed in there. The camera won't have much room to see because I'll probably be in the way. You basically just unbolt the pedals, pull them out, put the new pedals in, and there you go. So I'll get started doing that. Okay, so we're going to get in here and do the clutch, brake, and gas pedal first. You're going to want to undo all the screws that hold the plastics on, and then underneath here there's a metal thing. You'll have to remove the 10mm bolts that hold it on. You probably won't see much of this video because I'll be down there in the way, but I'll try to do my best to help you out. So we'll get started. Right, you can see up there, they actually have a cutout spot made specifically for if you want the 5-speed option. Up there, there's a bolt, or there's a hole where you can stick a 12mm bolt. That will hold the clutch pedal in, and then you pull this thing out right here, which are usually not too easy. These things are kind of pain. And then there's a plug right here, and then 2 bolt holes. You can go ahead and just push those little plugs out. And this one here is you can knock out with a socket or something. Go ahead and see if we can knock it out. Sorry for the camera, guys. I'm gonna have to use some force, but you knock that out and you can put the slave cylinder in and bolt it all in. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the clutch pedal put all in here. Alright, so I got it all done, clutch, brake, gas, all the nuts, bolts, everything's where it should be. Have to throw in the throttle cable, and in here will be done. Then we just got to get the engine and transmission in, and shift linkage and wiring, and start it up. Okay everyone, so here's the rear T-bracket for the manual transmission. I cleaned it and painted it, clear coated it, all that good stuff, just so it looks a little prettier. And then we've got this bracket which goes to the passenger side motor mount. It's the upper transmission mount, if you will. You'll need these things in order to do this swap. The linkages I do not have attached to the transmission. I will install those after the engine's in. It just makes things a lot easier that way. And if you get stuck trying to get the roll pin out, it's also called a bitch pin. The roll pin is just a little metal circle thing with a zigzag in it, and I have a method and a technique to remove those, but you basically just get a little bit bigger of a Phillips head screwdriver and you put it on the top or the bottom and you whack it really hard till it pops it out. That's the best way to do it. So we're going to go ahead and get this on the cherry picker, drop the engine in, bolt it all up. I got all the line in the engine bay done. I did that at the same time as I was doing the clutch pedal, but it just bolts into the factory spots. It's kind of cool. So we'll go ahead and get this in, and then we'll work on linkages and wiring, and then we're going to fire it up. Okay, next thing you want to know on the auto to manual swap, you will need a 5-speed lower torque bracket, torque mount. It looks a lot different than the automatic, as you can see. So you'll unbolt the 2 bolts. There's one right here and then one right here. They're 14mm bolts. Or you can undo this, I believe it's a 19mm bolt right on the end. These are a lot harder to get off unless you have an impact. So I just recommend undoing that one down there. Just undoing the 2 bolts. Then you'll be able to bolt this up with the 3 17mm bolts that come on the transmission. And then you'll have the torque mount there, the bracket and all that good stuff. And you'll want these, even though they're solid mounts, you'll want the extra support just because it's that much more traction, more torque gets down to the wheels. So just remember to add those if you've got solid ones, because they do make these in solid form. If you got those, then you're set. But if you don't, I would definitely put these on as an extra added vibration dampener as well, because it has a rubber in there, and those are polyurethane. If you're going for an all factory look, definitely run them. They have one on that side, but I'm not able to run it because the header. So I've got all the line ran here in the engine bay, so it'll basically just bolt up right there, and then I will show you how to bleed the clutch afterwards. So I'm going to bolt that up real quick and go from there. Okay, so to bleed this slave cylinder, you're going to need someone on the inside of the vehicle. Make sure that the fluid's topped off. They will pump it up, and when you say hold, they'll hold it to the floor. You'll release this valve. Once you release the valve, it will shoot fluid out along with the air. You tighten it back up and you repeat the process till there's no more air bubbles. So I'll have him pump it up now. You want to go ahead and pump it? Now hold it. Now pump it back up. Now hold it. Okay, pump it back up one more time. Hold it down. And then we check the fluid and we do it one more time just to be sure. Is the pedal holding good? So now that we got that done, okay, when it comes to the engine bay wiring, you will have a 3-wire connector. This wire is already broke. The orange wire will be disregarded. Just cut it out of the harness completely. You won't need it. You will need to convert to a 2-wire unless you're using an automatic intake manifold, which typically you don't when you get a 5-speed swap. So you'll take the 2 wires, right, and you'll cut them. You're going to want to cut this orange one completely out of the way altogether. Just get it out of the way, tape it up, whatever. So you will cut the yellow and black wire. You'll get yourself another connector like this, just a 2-wire, 2-prong connector. I used the old power steering one. It's the same that you use for like a VTEC solenoid. It's all the same. You can use a coolant temperature sensor. Just get one from a junkyard or an old wiring harness and it'll work great. And you'll take the green wire, which is the top one, and you'll connect it to the yellow and black wire. And then you'll take the black wire and connect it to the black and blue wire. Solder it up and you've got your air idle control valve converted. So that's all there is to that. Other thing to note is down here somewhere we have a wire. It's right here. This one comes directly off the transmission. This is the reverse wire. If you can find the other end of this, which is the connector that connects to this, you're going to want to cut it off too, so that you can run these 2 wires to the center console. When we get to the center console, I'll explain more on that. We're going to go there in just a minute. Alright, now we're inside, and you can see the wiring, the shifter, all that crap. So now we're going to undo the Phillips head screws that hold this down, and take this out so I can show you more on the wiring. Okay, so I already tore this apart for you to show you a few things. You can see that these little circles here, that means the nuts are accessible from underneath that'll remove this console. So you'll have to get underneath and remove the bolts or nuts that are underneath. And if you haven't already, there's a little clip that goes around here, and I'll show you exactly what it looks like. Looks like this. You just pull it out. I had to do that to remove the automatic transmission, but you'll do the same thing because you're removing the automatic transmission. So go ahead and pull this box out, or the shifter, and after that's pulled out, we'll go over what these wires do and which one goes to what. So let's get to pulling the underneath side out. Okay, now that I removed the 4 bolts that hold the 4 nuts that hold the shifter assembly in, you just pull straight up, make sure all the connectors are disconnected. Now we have this sliding mechanism, which park, reverse, neutral, drive, low, all those, they run through this. The 2 thicker wires, the black white and the red black, if you tie those together, it'll make it to where the car turns on without the clutch being pushed down. Or you could take these and run them to the clutch safety switch like I had told you about earlier. I just run them together unless you're wanting to go for that factory feel or you have a safety concern of some sort. I just tie these 2 together and solder them. Right below those, you will see a green, black, and a yellow. That is reverse. That's for your reverse lights to kick on. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut those out right now. Now what some people do is they cut them way up here, but I'm going to add extra wiring so I can get it back out of the way and add more wires. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So let me set this down and get started. Okay, now that we have these 2 wires and these 2 wires, you might want to tape the rest of these off because there is exposed wires, just so they don't touch each other and cause a short, because I don't use any of those other wires. So what we're going to do now is we're going to splice these open, and then we're going to tie them together, and I'm going to solder them. And then there are 2 wires that I told you to run from your transmission reverse light switch. There's a connector. You can connect them or you can just run them directly from it through the firewall. I have the 2 wires that I ran through the firewall right here. It doesn't matter of color orientation, as long as the connection happens from the switch, it's fine. So you'll tie these to the green and yellow. And then you'll solder these together as well. That way you'll have reverse lights. So I'm going to get the solder and get to soldering it. I'll be right back. Okay, now that I got all the wires taped up and soldered, we're gonna take this and we're just gonna tuck it back in there. Out of the way, out of sight, and out of mind. Now that that part's done, probably move this back a little bit too. We have to cut this part out right here, because right now what happens is inside here this goes down too far and it causes the shift linkages to bang up against this when you're trying to shift gears. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the air grinder in here, and unfortunately it's the only way I know how to do it, only tools I have available. So I will just cut it open, and this part here, later on I will go down and get a piece of sheet metal and gasket seal around it really well and put the sheet metal there and screw it in. That way this will be covered up completely. But for right now I have to cut it open, and we'll figure out how to cover it up once the time comes. Okay, so I got it cut out. I started cutting it out and the air compressor couldn't keep up with the air grinder. So I beat it out and then thought about it, and I forgot that there's pinch welds that hold that little tunnel thing in. And if I'd have drilled them out, I could have knocked it out a lot easier without damaging as much. So I went ahead and painted all the exposed metal areas. Went out and bought a piece of aluminum or tin or whatever this is, and it'll go right over here, and I'm just going to use self-tapping screws, screw it down. But before I screw it down, I'm going to gasket seal this entire area up. That way no water will get in and it'll be waterproof in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I have got to use the screw gun and maneuver the light, so I'm sorry if the quality looks like crap. So let's find a little place to prop the camera so I can get started. Oh, there it is. It's all on there. I may go over it with some aluminum tape just to kind of double seal it. It's a air ducting tape. It's like a chrome tape. I've used it before and it worked pretty good. It'll help seal up all the edges, and it's waterproof, so it works really good. So there's that. Now we have to undo this, and there's a mechanism inside that has to be just pulled out and cut, and we'll get started doing that. Okay, now that we got that done, got the center console back in. Looks like it came factory 5-speed. So I'm gonna have my buddy David get in here, and I'm gonna go out there and we're gonna fire it up, see what happens. But hopefully it just fires on the first try. So I will clean this all up later. Also, I don't know if you've seen the Ninja Turtle headliner. Kids absolutely love it. I don't really care what anyone else says. My kids love it, so I love it. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Wife wants to do something similar. She don't know what yet. But I'm gonna go out there and try to get it started and hope it fires on the first try. So, see what happens. Fix that intake gasket leak and it'll be golden. Car goes into reverse, drives down the road, everything's good. No check engine lights. It's running awesome. So stay tuned for more. Like, subscribe, share. If you haven't already, go for it. There will be way more on this, as you can see how far it's come already. Paint, everything else. Work out all the minor problems, which the only minor problem I'm really having is that air intake leak. So, yep, doing good. We will have the Inaka exhaust here soon. The Stage 3 cam isn't installed yet. It's actually right here, sitting in the package still, because of the fact that I have to hold it at 1500 RPMs to 2000 RPMs, anywhere between there, for about 20 minutes. And yeah, that's not a very good idea with this just running open down pipe off of the race header. So it might piss everyone off. So we will get it installed soon, promise. I didn't buy it for it to just sit. So definitely stay tuned to the channel. There's going to be more videos after this. So thanks for watching, everyone.